NBA, Demon God Pangu dominates basketball. Immortal myth. Episode 41. Arenas and Jiang Pan excitedly bumped their chests and celebrated. You are finally willing to take out your signature move. That's right. This movement is the secret move that Jiang Pan practiced last night. Throughout the stadium, the shouts of the fans almost overturned the stadium. The fans shouted Jiang Pan's name madly, and the scene that happened just now was so shocking. All the people present had never seen such a scene. Whether in the NCAA or the NBA, Jiang Pan was the first player to make such a move. 3-point layup. It's worthy of being a demon god. This physical fitness is simply amazing. Michael Jordan's nickname, Flying Man, should give way. This is the real Flying Man. Jiang Pan is awesome. In front of the TV, the fans of the Celestial Empire saw such a picture, and they were also passionate. In the audience, Scarlett John was also stunned, and the more she looked at Jiang Pan, the more she felt moved. At this moment, her little heart was pounding, and Jiang Pan completely changed her opinion in less than a minute. She seemed to have developed an indescribable special feeling for Jiang Pan. Jessica, what kind of person is that Celestial Empire center in life? Scarlett John asked suddenly. Jessica Alba was slightly stunned, and she turned her head to look at her good girlfriend with a complicated expression. You won't really like him, will you? Scarlett John shook her head. I don't know if it's a favorite, but I want to know him. Hearing this, Jessica Alba knew that she really had feelings for Jiang Pan. I don't know what kind of person he is in private. If you really have feelings for him, maybe try to get close to him. Just now, Jessica Alba was just joking with Scarlett Johansson, but now it seems that she is really interested in Jiang Pan. But it's no wonder that at the age of Scarlett John's son, seeing a young player who is so handsome on the court, and playing hard, it's strange not to be moved. Before Alba said that he didn't mind sharing Jiang Pan with Scarlett John news, it was a complete joke. Now she saw that Scarlett John's son was really moved by Jiang Pan, and she was slightly jealous in her heart. At first, she also told Scarlett John that she could share the Jiang Pan, but if Scarlett was really moved, she was a little complicated for a while. After all, women are stingy in this regard. On the other side, Kevin Garnett and Chauncey Billups were blown away by the ball. They played basketball for so many years, and they've never encountered this kind of operation. Not to mention in reality, even in a 2K basketball game, you can't play such an operation. My God. 3-point line jumps for layups. Chauncey, I can't believe my eyes, it's crazy. Garnett's whole body was so excited that he was incoherent. I really want to go on and play with this guy right away. I think as long as I can get the ball into his hands, that's a perfect assist. Seeing Jiang Pan's way of playing, Billups has been completely convinced. In his mind, he began to fantasize about Jiang Pan wearing a Timberwolves jersey and playing alongside himself and Garnett. That would definitely be the strongest trio in the NBA. In front of the screen, there are also many NBA stars watching this game. When they saw Jiang Pan's anti-heavenly god operation, their faces were full of shock. Shaquille, you can't do this, can you? Don't say it's you, I can't do it. Brian stared at the screen for a moment of exclamation. O'Neal has black lines on his face. Although I don't want to admit it, I must also admit that Jiang Pan's athletic talent far exceeds his own. O'Neal's eyes narrowed, and since he stepped into the league, he was not afraid of any inside beasts. But Jiang Pan made him smell a trace of pressure. Foo #K. This damn more flying than when I was at my peak. Michael Jordan is also incredible, and he has been working on a comeback training program for some time. The reason why he works so hard is simple. If you can become teammates with Jiang Pan, then go all out to attack the championship. If he becomes an opponent with Jiang Pan, then defeat him with all his might. On the sidelines, seeing that the University of Arizona was about to rise, the head coach of Michigan State University hurriedly called a timeout, wanting to block Jiang Pan's momentum. Coach, this guy is really extraordinary. On the bench, Zach Randolph said with a solemn expression. He had only been against Jiang Pan for one round just now, and he felt Jiang Pan's terrifying defensive skills. When he was singled with his back, he only felt that he was completely shrouded and there was no room to shoot. As the NCAA's first interior lineman, Randolph has never faced an opponent like Jiang Pan. Need a change of strategy? Randolph was silent for a moment, and then said, not for now, I want to see him for a while. He turned down the head coach's offer, and Randolph has pride in being NCAA's #1 interior lineman. If they make changes at this time, it will indirectly show that Randolph is inferior to Jiang Pan, which is unacceptable to him. At this point, the camera was given to the bench at the University of Arizona. All the players are still celebrating the goal. On the big screen above the court, Jiang Pan's ball has also been playing back. Jiang, your action is inevitably too exaggerated, who can withstand this? Richard Jefferson was still immersed in that shock. Not only is it exaggerated, but it's also very silky, and you can't see a little reluctance at all. Arenas added. Silky. Those two words don't just appear on the bench at the University of Arizona. The live TNT commentary also thinks. Jiang Pan's action not only highlights the physical talent against the sky, but also alarms without losing silk. It's no exaggeration to say that this is not only the most unrealistic layup I've ever seen, but also the silkiest goal I've ever seen in the NBA. Barkley said, Kenny, do you know what I'm thinking right now? What? Kenny Smith asked. Hint to you, it's a food. Food? Kenny Smith thought about it for a moment and shook his head again. It's Dove. Barkley smiled and said, I think Jiang Pan can go to speak for Dove. At this moment, indulge in silkiness. Kenny Smith. It's just that you're brainy. After a few moments, the timeout ended and the game continued. Jiang catches the ball on the inside, and he turns around after pushing Zach Randolph into a dunk. Zach wanted to get back on the field, but his shot on the inside was once again blocked by Jiang. The University of Arizona quickly pushed back, and Arenas sent a precise pass, OHHHHH. Assist Jiang to complete the air catch and dunk. Oh god. Jiang has completely gone crazy on the inside. Zach Randolph can't do anything with him. The NCAA's first inside lineman now seems to have no resistance. In the commentary table, Kenny Smith explained passionately. Under Jiang Pan's leadership, the University of Arizona made a perfect 17:5 start. Such a start completely surprised the media experts, and no one expected that Michigan State University would be passive from the beginning of the game. The for-tat confrontation between Randolph and Jiang Pan, which fans were expecting, did not appear, but became completely one-sided. What's going on with Zach Randolph today? Play so often? It's not that he plays erratically, but Jiang is too powerful, and under Jiang's defense, Zach simply won't get the opportunity to attack. I can't imagine that even the first center of the NCAA is not Jiang's opponent. This guy from the Celestial Empire is really strong, a little too much. Episode 42. Big Black Bear. Zach Randolph was blasted by Jiang Pan on the inside, but fortunately, their point Jason Richardson played well. While the team was behind, Richardson stepped up and made 3 consecutive three-pointers from the outside to help stabilize the situation. Gilbert Arenas could clearly see that he was a little nervous when facing Richardson, so he didn't play very well. Beep. The first half ended with the referee's whistle. 54:44. Even though Arenas didn't play well, the University of Arizona took a 10-point lead, all to the credit of Jiang Pan. Throughout the first half of the game, Jiang Pan's offensive defense picked up shoulders, slashing 38 points, 20 rebounds, and 5 blocks of super data. The 38 points also set his personal first-half scoring record, and he was also the first player in NCAA history to score 38 plus 20 plus 5 in the half. In contrast, the data of Zach Randolph, the Big Black Bear, is very stretched. He had just 2 points, 1 rebound in the first half, and a bit like the NCAA's #1 center. I didn't know, I thought I was injured and left the game after playing for 2 minutes. However, Jason Richardson played well, and he scored 19 points and 4 assists under the defense of Arenas. It is precisely because of his play that the University of Arizona has not been led by more. At halftime, in the locker room of the University of Arizona, the atmosphere was slightly heavy. Although they have the lead, they have led the least in the first half since these games. Gilbert Arenas lowered his head, his expression a little frustrated. He believes that the reason why the team led by only 10 points was entirely because he himself did not defend Jason Richardson. If he could have defended 2 more goals, the University of Arizona wouldn't have led by just 10 points right now. Humphreys looked at his beloved, and he gently patted Arenas' shoulder. Gilbert, it's not your fault. Jason's strength is absolutely above the NCAA. Arenas glanced up, his eyes shining with a thick look of self-reproach. No, it's my problem, it's that I didn't guard against him. Arenas never runs away from his mistakes, and if it is his problem, he will definitely take it. This has always been one of his credos. Indeed, in the first half, he faced Richardson with some psychological ups and downs, which led to so many points. If it weren't for the presence of Jiang Pan, I'm afraid that the University of Arizona would already be a backward party at this time. At this time, Jiang Pan suddenly stood up. Jason, is it? He said to Arenas, give that guy to me. Hearing this, Arenas turned his head to look at Jiang Pan. He was a little puzzled. What are you going to do? After the second half, you just have to hold on to him. Don't give him space to shoot, force him to break through or make a mid-range shot. Push him closer to the basket and you can leave it alone. As soon as these words came out, everyone immediately understood what Jiang Pan meant. That is the assistant defense of Jiang Pan. Anyone will question Jiang Pan's ability to assist in defense. Head coach Humphries also feels that this method is feasible. With Jiang Pan's defensive ability, once Richardson breaks into the inside, even if he is strong, it will be difficult to score in front of Jiang Pan. Then do it the way Jiang does. Meanwhile, in the locker room at Michigan State University, all the players were cheering Jason Richardson. In their opinion, Richardson is the only hope to win today's game. Zach Randolph has been blasted, and their proud interior line has completely lost its former glory. In the second half, everyone tried to get the ball into Richardson's hands as much as possible to create good offensive opportunities for him. The head coach of Michigan State University kept emphasizing, "Jason, whether we can make it to the final or not is up to you. I can only do my best to limit Jiang." Zach Randolph's tone was also full of apologies, and he now finally understood what a gap is. Before the start of this match, he thought that his strength should be between Jiang Pan and Buezhong. But when he really arrived in the game, he found that his so-called NCAA #1 center was simply not worth mentioning in front of Jiang Pan. The clown, it's actually me. Jiang Pan's performance in the first half today once again refreshed my cognition. Cut 38+20 at halftime, what a terrible statistic. In the CTV5 live broadcast room, Zhang Reasonable sighed deeply, seeing Jiang Pan play such a performance. He was happy from the bottom of his heart. After so many years, the Celestial Empire has finally produced a player with a talent against the sky. Director Zhang, do you think Jiang Pan can maintain this state in the second half of the game? Yang Jian asked. I don't think there's a problem. You look at his performance in the first half, and the 38 points were easy. Zach Randolph seems to have no presence in front of him, and both ends of the offensive and defensive ends are all bursting with Jiang Pan. The gap between the two is clear at a glance, so I think Jiang Pan will continue his strong performance in the second half of the game. Zhang Reasonable and serious analysis of the wave, in his opinion, even the two Randolphs may not be Jiang Pan's opponents. Do you think Michigan State University has the possibility of turning the game around? After all, the difference between the two teams is not very big, Yang Jian continued. I don't think there's much hope. The only point they can reverse is Jason Richardson on the outside. And you noticed one detail that didn't. Jason Richardson scored only 2 points in the half and was in the box. This shows that his attack has always been avoiding Jiang Pan, and his attack has great limitations. It's absolutely impossible for him to turn the game around. Zhang's reasonable response was firm. At halftime, the second half began, and the two sides were still in the main lineup. After all, this is a tiebreaker, and no one dares to raise it. The University of Arizona launched an attack. Jiang Pan asked for the ball in the low post, and after pushing Randolph, the backhand was a dunk. Ask for the ball, open it, snap it. This has almost become a trilogy of Jiang Pan's offense under the basket, and until now no one has been able to stop him. Back, Michigan State sent the baseline ball and Jason Richardson took the ball through the half. Facing the defense of Arenas, he directly chose to attack. But Arenas' defense is very pressing, and compared to the first half, he seems to be a different person. Richardson was shocked that he couldn't find a chance to shoot. However, Arenas' defense is very tight, and such a defense is the easiest to break through. After Richardson observed it, he immediately launched an impact. Sure enough, he only made a change of direction behind his back, successfully passed Arenas' defense, and rushed towards the penalty area. However, things were far from as simple as he thought, and when he rushed into the inside, what awaited him was a tower demon god. Episode 43, Standing under the basket, Jiang Pan is like a guardian of the forbidden area. When Richardson saw him, his heart couldn't help but tremble. He hesitated slightly, and finally decided to challenge Jiang Pan. Tongue. I saw Richardson jump. The bouncing force was very vigorous, and the body was extremely stretched in the air. He raised one arm high, seemingly wanting to give Jiang Pan a tomahawk-style trapping buckle. Seeing this, Jiang Pan also jumped immediately. Just when he was about to block Richardson, the other party suddenly stopped, and an air lever came by the trend. I have to say that Richardson's choice is very clever. He is well aware of Jiang Pan's defensive ability. If it is really blocked from the front, it is likely to be blocked. Therefore, he chose a very deceptive move, feigning a dunk when he actually pulled the bar for a layup. Michael Jordan used this move in competitions before, but he was just pretending. Jiang Pan was also a little surprised, and he didn't expect that Richardson would suddenly change his movements. But even so, Richardson's attack still failed to evade Jiang Pan's cover. Jiang Pan changed in the air with the opponent's movements, and his body actually rotated 90 degrees in the air. Pung. At the moment when Richardson pulled the rod, a pair of palms like iron tongs accurately grabbed the basketball. Woo-woo. What do I see? Ladies and gentlemen, it's a turn cap. Jiang Pan actually finished grabbing the hat after Richardson changed the way he attacked. Master and master move, Jiang Pan's ball is beyond the limit of what humans can do. In the commentary table, Kenny Smith, who saw the scene, held his head and shouted incredulous. The flying pig Barkley on the side looked stupid directly, his mouth was wide open, his eyes were round, and he didn't know what to say. Turn around and cap, is there a more coarse aerial ballet than this? In the audience, all the fans broke out into a wild roar again. Even Wolf King Garnett brushed and got up from his chair. His eyes stared straight at Jiang Pan, not moving. Chauncey Billups couldn't help but shout Jiang Pan's name with the fans at the scene. And yet, Jiang Pan's performance is far from over. Above the court, Jiang Pan's performance continued. After he completed turning plus capping in the air, he grabbed the ball with one hand, threw his arm violently, and vigorously threw the ball forward with one hand. Gilbert Arenas appeared in front of the court at some point, and after successfully receiving the ball, he staged a dragon dunk. This round stunned everyone present. Stare at the dog. The audience was dumbfounded. Such a picture is rare in decades, at least since the formation of the NCAA league. No one has been able to do it. The air cap grab, followed by a quarterback-style long pass, is extremely demanding on the player's physical fitness. In addition to super stagnant air capabilities, it is also necessary to have absolute core explosive power. Both are indispensable. After landing, Jason Richardson's pupils opened and he froze in place. You know, he is known for his physical fitness. But now, Jiang Pan's physical fitness was terrifying to the point that he couldn't imagine. Turn in the air and grab the cap plus follow the trend directly in the quarter-long pass. Just Nima is outrageous. Court sidelines. Scarlett John and Jessica Alba directly covered their mouths. From the eyes of the two, you can see how shocked their hearts are at this time. Especially Jessica Alba, when she saw Jiang Pan's terrifying core power, she suddenly became a little worried. With this small body of his own, can he really withstand the impact of Jiang Pan? She turned to look at Scarlett John next to her. If the two of them play a mixed doubles, they may be killed by Jiang Pan. Oh my god. Jiang Pan's action is simply beyond human limits, and Ultraman can't do it. I've watched basketball for so many years, and this is the first time I've seen such a horrific scene. In the CTV5 live broadcast room, Zhang Cheng's heart was deeply shocked. He is a veteran of basketball for decades, and scenes large and small have long been commonplace. Now, there are few scenes that can shock him. But just now, Jiang Pan's set of actions made him feel a shock from his soul. I have never seen such a picture. I can only say that Jiang Pan has brought us too many surprises. Maybe it won't be long before he brings another surprise. Yang Jian's voice trembled a little. For basketball players, whoever they are, will have their own ceilings. Veteran basketball workers like Zhang Cheng have extraordinary experience, and they often only need to pay attention to a few games to roughly judge the upper limit of a player's ability. But Jiang Pan is an exception, because he brings different surprises to fans in almost every game. So until now, Zhang reasonable and they have not been able to estimate where the upper limit of Jiang Pan is. Jiang Pan really has the potential to grow into a top superstar in the NBA. He doesn't even need to go through any adaptation period, even if he is allowed to play in the NBA right now. I think he can play perfectly. Zhang reasonable praised continuously. Maybe it won't be long before we can see Jiang Pan standing on the stage of the NBA Finals and holding that O'Brien Cup. Yang Jian echoed. The game went on and the ball was back in Richardson's hands. With the first experience, he became more careful in his attack this time. Outside the three-point line, Richardson beckoned Randolph to make a block for him. At the same time, he can use Randolph's body to delay Jiang Pan. Under cover, Richardson seized the hole in the change of defense and rushed into the inside line at full speed to shoot a layup. But at the moment he struck, Jiang Pan flew out of nowhere and slapped the basketball fiercely, and this is still a nailboard hat. The basketball was slapped on the rebound by gravity, and immediately bounced out and flew straight to the direction of the audience. This scene once again shocked the commentators at the scene. Oh! The distance of the snail plate hat rebounding is even farther than the direct cap flying out. It's hard to imagine what kind of power it takes to achieve such a cap. Coincidentally, the basketball bounced out in the direction where Jessica Alba and Scarlett John were sitting. The basketball dilates in the pupils of the sisters, frightening them into losing their color. Just as the orange basketball was about to hit Alba, a tall figure suddenly flew over and hugged the basketball. This person is Jiang Pan. Hero save beauty. But because his weight was too large and his inertia was difficult to control, although Jiang Pan hugged the basketball, his body directly pounced on Jessica Alba. Here comes a stadium car accident. Even more embarrassing is his own face. Impartial, exactly buried in Alba's. Above. He felt that the touch of his face was soft, and the smell of perfume and body fragrance mixed came to his nose, which was indescribably wonderful. Not good. Jiang Pan, who realized something, hurriedly raised his head. Only then did he find himself in an embarrassing situation, and he couldn't help but jump in his heart, knowing that he had caused trouble. What's more, this is still under the gaze of the fans. At this moment, all the fans were stunned. Nima, the pitch is openly oily? Episode 44, Inside, I said I didn't mean it, do you believe it? Jiang Pan scratched his head and apologized repeatedly. He really didn't mean it, he just saved the ball himself, and he didn't notice the situation in front of him at all. Alba's cheeks flushed slightly, and she quickly waved her hand, no. It's okay, you're not hurt, are you? Jiang Pan was slightly stunned, he didn't expect the woman in front of him to be so gentle. It is clear that people have been bumped, but they care about themselves. And he only now noticed that the woman was still very beautiful, and he even forgot to get up, and until now, he still pressed Alba under him. But Scarlett John next to her was a little anxious. Before she was still a little unsure if she really liked Jiang Pan. But at this moment, she was indeed jealous. When you are jealous for the sake of a person. No need to argue, that must be like. Now, she can be completely sure that she has also been enchanted by Jiang Pan. Scarlett John looked at Alba with a complicated expression, and muttered in her heart, such a good thing, why not me? Jiang Pan kept the action of pounced on Alba, which lasted for more than 10 seconds, until he was reminded by the referee on the sideline. Jiang, it's still competing. The referee's voice was very small, but it still made Jiang Pan embarrassed for a while. He hurriedly got up and returned to the field, but in his mind he remembered the feeling of throwing himself into the woman's arms just now, it was simply too comfortable. Even when he returned to the field, he did not forget to look back. Jiang Pan then discovered that next to the woman who was thrown down by him just now, there was a goddess, it was Scarlett John News. Although her face still looked a little immature, Jiang Pan still recognized her at a glance. The young Scarlett John is so beautiful. Jiang Pan secretly sighed in his heart. Then he looked at the girl next to him who he had just bumped into, and muttered in his heart, as if his face was a little familiar. In the audience, Jessica Alba immediately showed off to Scarlett Johansson next to her. Scarlett, did you see it? Jiang, he threw me down, and he also buried his head in my ex. When he thought of the picture just now, Alba's expression was very excited. However, Scarlett John ignored her, and even slapped Alba's hand on her shoulder. Don't touch me. The voice of resentment rang in Alba's ears. Scarlett John said, enjoy yours, the aftertaste is endless. The footage on the sidelines filmed this scene several times in 360 degrees without dead ends. It was also presented on the 4 large screens above the stadium, and when the fans saw it, they immediately set off a burst of laughter, which was also a not small episode on the sidelines. That young beauty I know, it's Scarlett John News. Sitting next to her is Jessica Alba. The two of them should be very good friends, but now it seems that there is a conflict. Kenny Smith said a little puzzled. Kenny, can't you see that? Scarlett, she was obviously jealous. You pay attention to the way she looks at Jiang Pan, that is pink love. And just now Jiang threw down Jessica Alba in front of her in order to save the ball. You said what kind of mood she is in now, then it's strange not to be angry. For this kind of male and female love scene, Flying Pig Barkley seems to know more. Listening to Barkley's words, Kenny Smith grasped the problem. It doesn't seem that things are that simple. You look at Jessica's eyes, she seems to be very interested in Jiang too. These two women should have liked Jiang, hee. Now there is a good show to watch. Kenny Smith smiled wickedly. Good show? That's not necessarily, but I'm starting to worry a little for Jiang. Once a woman is jealous, the power is simply more terrifying than the explosion. Good luck to him. Barkley couldn't help but snicker. After Jiang Pan returned to the court, Arenas showed a meaningful expression. It's just that he is still playing, and he didn't say much. But Jiang Pan knows very well that with his nature, when the game is over, he will definitely ask him enthusiastically. This episode on the sidelines has temporarily come to an end. Back in the game, Michigan State continued to run out on the offensive end. When Jason Richardson's shots were blocked, his scoring efficiency plummeted. The outside line did not shoot almost, several times hit the inside, and were blocked by Jiang Pan, and the team's scoring immediately came to a standstill. Seeing that the score difference was gradually widened, Zach Randolph also began to worry. He was going to try another attack, but before he could fully shoot the ball, he was mercilessly blocked by Jiang Pan again and slapped out of bounds. But the ball was still in their hands, and after sending the touchline ball, there was only 1 second left to attack. Jason Richardson was forced to shoot from a long-distance three-pointer. Bang! The crisp sound of striking iron sounded, and the basketball popped out. Randolph saw the timing and immediately jumped to grab an offensive rebound. But behind him, Jiang Pan stepped out with an arrow, and he stepped up like a dry land plucking onions. The amazing bouncing power combined with the extremely fast bounce speed allowed him to come out on top and violently take off the rebound above Randolph's head. Wow! This is again the result of crushing physical talent. Jiang Pan was able to protect the backcourt rebound in this situation. Kenny Smith exclaimed. I think that because he kissed Goddess X, his whole body is full of strength. Barkley laughed informally. The following round, Michigan State continued its offensive. Jason Richardson was very unconvinced, and after he blocked with Zach Randolph, he formed a misalignment and directly faced Jiang Pan. At this time, Randolph went down to ask for the ball, which would have been a good offensive opportunity, but Richardson was already carried away by anger and did not choose to pass, but decided to misplace the single. Richardson wanted to use his speed combined with agile footsteps to shake off Jiang Pan, and he continued to shake the ball in front of Jiang Pan. But no matter how he changed, Jiang Pan could always keep up with his rhythm and always blocked his breakthrough route. Seeing that Jiang Pan did not eat, Richardson decided to forcibly break through, but he tried 3 times in a row without success. Seeing that the attack time was about to run out again, under the desolation, he chose to step back and jump and shoot. As everyone knows, his every move was read by Jiang Pan. At the same time as Richardson made a move, Jiang Pan took a step, and then slapped the ball mercilessly away. After capping, Jiang Pan shrugged his shoulders, pretending to be bored. My cap, MO feelings. After the start of the second half, Richardson made a total of 4 shots, except for the ultra-long-range three-pointer. The remaining 3 shots were all mercilessly blocked by Jiang Pan. At this moment, Richardson had begun to have some doubts about life. He finally understood why Zach Randolph was acting so erratic. There are Gundam in the enemy camp. Episode 45, What a terrifying defensive ability. Jiang Pan's defensive deterrent is not only in the restricted area. His defensive area is really terrifying, and he can even defend against the outside. In the CTV5 live broadcast room, Yang Jian kept explaining. Jiang Pan is definitely the best center I have ever seen offensive and defensive ability, and his speed of movement under his feet is really amazing. He could be the next player who can defend from number 1 to number 5. There are few top defenders like this, let alone in the NCAA, in the entire history of the NBA, and they can be counted on 5 fingers. Zhang Reasonable said seriously. This is not that he is touting Jiang Pan, but it is what it is. In the history of the NBA, there have been many top defenders, and these players have super defensive ability in their corresponding positions. But once they are dislocated to defend, then their defensive ability will be much reduced. And a player like Jiang Pan, who can defend from the inside to the outside and still maintain a very high defensive level. That's really a rare existence. In the NBA, the strongest outside defender I've ever seen is Michael Jordan, and the strongest inside defender is probably Bill Russell. But neither of them can defend from number 1 to number 5, it's not that they can't defend, it's that the defensive effect after the misalignment is not so good. And Jiang Pan is different from them, whether he is inside or outside, he has a dominant level defensive ability, which is what he really scares about. Zhang Qing added a few more words. He can take Michael Jordan and Bill Russell as a comparison, it is enough to see how high he thinks of Jiang Pan. The game continued, with Arenas holding the ball on the outside. Jiang Pan gave him a look, and Arenas immediately understood. I saw Arenas suddenly make a joint shot. At this time, Jiang Pan turned around Randolph, and then jumped to complete the empty catch. This trick, the two of them often use in the game, and it is extremely deceptive. It seems to be a shooting action, but in fact it is a pass. Boom. A huge explosion sounded, and the entire basketball hoop was shaking violently. Jiang Pan hurriedly let go, for fear of bursting the rebound again. Jiang, pay attention to the strength. On the sidelines, Coach Humphreys hurriedly reminded that Jiang Pan closed in time, otherwise it might have been a slag now. Looking at Jiang Pan's terrifying power, Zach Randolph's expression was slightly shocked. After Randolph sent the ball from the baseline, he immediately ran to the front court and made a blocking match with Richardson again. This time, Randolph used all his strength to withstand Jiang Pan. Richardson found the right moment and immediately attacked the basket. He glanced back behind him and saw that Jiang Pan was at least 2 meters away from him, so he made a low-hand layup. And yet... Snap! Another crisp sound, and the basketball was once again slapped on the rebound. WTF. Richardson stood in place stunned, looking at the basketball that was fanned, he was completely stunned. He obviously glanced back before the layup and only shot after determining the safe distance, but why was it still blocked? Zach Randolph and Richardson looked at each other, his face full of guilt. It turned out that at the moment when Richardson started to make a layup, Jiang Pan got rid of Randolph and flew to complete the block at a very fast speed. The 4 blocks in the second half were all given to Richardson alone, and at this moment, the fans were stunned. In the first half, Jiang Pan burst the NCAA's strongest interior lineman Zach Randolph on both ends of the offensive and defensive ends. Not long after the start of the second half, he taught Jason Richardson, the NCAA's strongest offensive player, with 4 ruthless blocks. Who would believe it was true if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes? The head coach of Michigan State University called a timeout again to make adjustments, fearing that the player's mentality would explode or even his basketball dreams would be shattered. Don't worry, the other party is nothing remarkable. In fact, they are relying on a Celestial Empire center to support. After the timeout, Jason, you and Zach will block and disassemble more, and after forming a change of defense, the 2 of you will pull each other as far away as possible, so that the center of the Celestial Empire cannot take care of left and right. I don't believe he can prevent 2 people at the same time. The head coach of Michigan State University said as he gestured at the tactical board with a pen. The University of Arizona must not be allowed to continue to expand the score, otherwise if you want to reverse it, you will add men to men. Kevin, you want to get this guy on the team, is the idea a joke or a serious one? Billups looked at Jiang Pan and asked seriously. I used to just think about it, now I think about it. Garnett took a deep breath, and his eyes became extremely hot when he looked at Jiang Pan. This guy enters the NBA, and the whole league will incarnate justice. Justice? What do you mean? Billups didn't quite understand his words. He will be the righteous enemy of the whole league, the first villain of the NBA. As soon as these words came out, Billups looked stunned. The entire alliance incarnates justice, and Jiang Pan is the public enemy of justice. One person let the entire union tremble for it. He knew Garnett had never spoken so highly of any player. Interesting. If he really becomes the number 1 villain in the NBA, then I am willing to stand with him and fight the entire NBA. The corners of Billups' mouth curved. After he said this, he actually took his mobile phone directly from Kevin Garnett's pocket and sent a text message to the team's management. The content of the text message is simple, just one sentence. Jiang Pan must come, otherwise I will go. By the time Garnett reacted, the text message had already been sent. Changsey, is your phone dead? Why take my phone? Garnett frowned. Billups laughed treacherously. Think about it, in the Timberwolves, is your status high, or my status? As soon as this remark came out, Garnett immediately understood. Co-author Billups is using his identity to force the team's management. This wave of operating horse fleas is out of the water. In fact, Billups is also forced to do this. After all, he is now at the trough of his career, his own statistics are not good, and he has no say in the team. Even if he presses the team management, it is estimated that people will not pay attention to him, and may even kick him. But Garnett is different, he is the absolute core of this Timberwolves team and has a pivotal place in the team. Of course, he has to do something like forcing the palace to prick the chicken. Episode 46, from the beginning of the second half to now, but in less than 5 minutes, the gap between the 2 sides has been widened to 18 points. During that time, Michigan State only scored 3 points, and it was a 3-pointer that role players got into. At the University of Arizona, Jiang Pan has improved his personal score to 48 points. 50. 50. 50. At this moment, the fans chanted that they were expecting Jiang Pan to score 50 points. In March Madness this season, no player has scored 50 points, and if nothing else, Jiang will be the first player to score 50 points. In the commentary table, Kenny Smith's face was full of expectation. If he continues to play at this pace, 50 points may not be his end, maybe he can cut 60 plus. Flying Pig Barkley has no doubt about Jiang Pan's scoring ability. In his opinion, if Jiang Pan can play the entire second half, it is very likely to complete this score. Bags, unlimited bags, don't let him score again. On the sidelines, the head coach of Michigan State University shouted wildly at the court like crazy. Zach Randolph and others were also riveted and began to defend Jiang Pan like a barrel, not even giving him any chance to catch the ball. These last 2 points are like their bottoms, and they can't let Jiang Pan peel off them anyway. Arenas tried to get the ball in several times, but he couldn't find a good chance. In the next attack, Arenas' first choice was passing. However, the opposing player completely blocked the passing route between him and Jiang Pan, and even missed his own defensive players and did not let Jiang Pan catch the ball. In desperation, Arenas had to choose to strike on his own. Bang! The basketball smashed into the front of the basket and immediately popped out. 3 Michigan State University players at the basket held Jiang Pan to prevent him from competing for a rebound in the front court. Zach Randolph, on the other hand, saw the timing and wanted to take the rebound. In these rounds, Jiang Pan was infinitely targeted by the other party, and what made him even more unhappy was that these guys made a lot of small moves when defending him, and the anger in his heart was building up little by little, until this moment completely broke out. Special. The tiger is not powerful, you and I am a sick cat? I saw Jiang Pan's legs bent into a bow, and then jumped with all his strength, and in the shocked expressions of everyone, he took the first step to get the rebound. Bang! And across the trend, Randolph is a two-handed snap. The score counter flashed, the University of Arizona added 2 more points, and Jiang Pan's personal score also successfully reached 50 points at this moment, which was the first individual single game of 50 points in March Madness. The fans at the scene immediately got up and sent the fiercest applause to Jiang Pan, and at the same time, there was also the call of MVP. This scene lasted for more than 10 seconds, and even more crazy moves were yet to come. These fans raised their hands high and then bowed to the Jiang Pan on the court. Oh my God, the fans at the scene actually bowed to Jiang, which is undoubtedly the greatest affirmation for him. It's been a long time since I've seen such crazy scenes on the NCAA field. The actions of the fans once again shocked Kenny Smith. Even Jiang Pan himself was a little confused. Prostration. It was also the first time he had experienced something like this, and he didn't even know how to greet the fans. Jiang, you have conquered the fans on the scene, this is the NBA arena. Arenas looked at such a scene, his heart was both excited and envious, and he also wanted to be recognized by the fans like Jiang Pan. Under the basket, Zach Randolph, who was made up for the dunk, completely fell to the bottom. Just now, he finally got stuck in a vantage point, but he was unexpectedly detained from behind by Jiang Pan. He is the NCAA's #1 insider, so humiliated by Jiang Pan, how can he save face? Randolph now regrets it a lot. If time can be turned back, he would rather not reach the Final Four, so that at least he does not have to face Jiang Pan, and he will not be abused so badly. His big black bear was completely beaten as Winnie the Pooh today. There was no resistance at all. I see you don't play in the future, you play so cute, you can simply be a store pet doll. After landing, Jiang Pan smiled at Randolph. This sentence is very harsh, it is simply murderous. Randolph wanted to refute, but he found that he didn't even have the strength to refute. Zach, don't let him influence you, don't forget our tactics. Richardson hurriedly came over and comforted, and glared at Jiang Pan coldly. Matches can be lost. But the momentum cannot be lost. This is Richardson's credo. Don't give up, we still have time. Richardson pointed to the timer above the rebound and spoke again. Randolph glanced up and saw 10 minutes left in the game and they were now 20 points behind. Although this difference is a bit large, it is still within the range of pursuit. Randolph regained some confidence with his teammates, and no matter what, he was also recognized as the NCAA's #1 interior lineman before this game, and he will not be so vulnerable. The reinvigorated Randolph quickly threw himself into the offensive. After Richardson took the ball through halftime, the two once again played blocking. After forming a change of defense, Richardson pulled Jiang Pan directly to the outside, while Randolph took the opportunity to cut under the basket. Seeing this, Richardson made a cannonball-style pass straight to the basket, trying to assist Randolph to complete the score. At this moment, Jiang Pan is still at the three-point line, and Randolph has entered the paint area, and the distance between the two is very long, and there is almost no possibility of retreating. Randolph got the best offensive opportunity of the match, and Arenas, who stood in front of him, was nowhere near as tall and powerful as him. Facing Arenas' defense, Randolph directly crushed with his body. Even if Arenas exerted all his strength to push it, he still couldn't stop him from moving forward. Randolph squeezed smoothly into the basket, and he did not hesitate to complete the dunk. Snap! In the next breath, above the basket, what sounded above the basket was not the sound of a violent buckle, but the sound of a desperate closure. Yes, Jiang Pan successfully chased back, and also sent a blood cap. The huge force poured into Randolph's body through the basketball, causing him to lose his balance in an instant, and his huge body slammed heavily on the floor. Fortunately, his body fat was thicker, which played a good cushioning role and did not hurt. But his little heart was hit hard again. He didn't even have the opportunity to score the ball, so it was better to find a piece of tofu to hit and die. Little bear is so cute, why hat little bear bear? On the sidelines, the head coach of Michigan State University saw this scene and fell into complete despair. Now it can be officially announced that the super combination of Randolph plus Richardson has been hammered by Jiang Pan. Episode 47, Phew. The fans immediately burst into a burst of boos. Zach Randolph sat on the floor and listened to desperate boos, the first time he had encountered such a situation. Jiang Pan's blood cap not only organized Randolph's attack, but also destroyed Michigan State University's confidence. When their two core pillars, Zach Randolph and Jason Richardson, are blown up together, who else can the team count on? On the sidelines, the head coach of Michigan State University looked at the scene on the court with a livid face, and he knew that this year's March Madness trip might be over. Another ruthless block, Jiang completely transformed into a blocking machine of the stadium, and he used the blockage again and again to destroy the confidence of the opponent. This celestial empire demon god who rose in March is simply unbelievable. Now it seems that Michigan State University has almost no chance of a reversal, and it is almost only a matter of time before it is eliminated. Kenny Smith couldn't believe what he was seeing, and there was a hint of loss in his tone. This is probably the worst NCAA Final Four battle in recent years, and in the first half, Michigan State University could barely resist with Richardson's play. But in the second half, the situation on the field was completely one-sided. Under Jiang Pan's leadership, the University of Arizona opened the gap in just a few minutes, and now it has entered garbage time. With less than 8 minutes left in the game, the difference between the two teams had reached 25 points, which was almost a death sentence. Michigan State players have completely lost the will to continue fighting on the field, and they have become very scattered on both ends of the offensive and defensive ends, allowing the University of Arizona to ravage. 3 minutes later, the gap continued to widen to 30 points, and the game completely lost suspense, and the two sides replaced substitutes and closed early. Beep. The final whistle blows, and the game is over. 112:76. The University of Arizona eliminated Michigan State University with a 36-point slaughter and successfully won the NCAA Finals. At the moment when the whistle sounded, the fans stood up and cheered. The players on the bench at the University of Arizona immediately rushed onto the court and began a crazy celebration. Head coach Humphreys also smiled happily. He never dreamed that in March Madness this year, they would actually enter the finals. Come, Jiang. All the fans of Jiang Pan shouted his exclusive slogan again, and the scene was extremely shocking. After the game, Jiang Pan cut a super triple-double of 58 points, 33 rebounds, and 15 blocks. He became the first player in NCAA history to play 55 plus 30 plus 15. Jiang Pan's semifinal data is really shocking. Although this is only an NCAA game, it is not easy to play such statistics. Even the current Big Shark O'Neal may not be able to get such data on the NCAA field. In the CTV5 live broadcast room, Zhang Reasonable constantly praised Jiang Pan. Jiang Pan's performance today is definitely at the historical level. In the second half, he single-handedly defended the opposing team's two core players, and I haven't seen a second person like him to do this except him. Yang Jian also kept admiring. The University of Arizona is really lucky. As far as I know, Jiang Pan is a transfer student this year. If he transfers to another team, then the University of Arizona is likely to be out of the first round. They have made it to the finals now, and I think whether they win the championship or not, this season will be a legendary season in the history of their school. For the University of Arizona, this year's March Madness is really crazy, and all this is because of Jiang Pan. Finally, Zhang Reasonable did not forget to put gold on Jiang Pan's face. But Zhang Reasonable said that there is nothing wrong. This is the first time in the history of the University of Arizona team that they have reached the NCAA final. Many players were already crying with joy, and they ran around the stadium excitedly, and their emotions were beyond words. On the sidelines, Zach Randolph and Jason Richardson looked at the scene in front of them, constantly sighing and shaking their heads, their faces full of despair. Especially Zach Randolph, at this moment, he only feels that his title of NCAA's first interior lineman is being trampled on. Compared with Jiang Pan's supergod performance, he can be described as the worst game of his NCAA career, and he is also the culprit that caused the team to lose. Jason Richardson's performance was better than him, at least he supported the team's attack in the first half, but when facing Jiang Pan in the second half, he was also abused. The answer to which is stronger and weaker in the core of the two teams has been given at this moment. After the game, TNT reporters found some teams on the scene for short interviews. Jason Richardson said, "When I see Jiang like this, I know that he is a player who can change the whole league. Even though he plays number 5 on the pitch, I don't think he's a center forward, and I think he's totally capable of playing any position. If I had to choose, he would definitely be the NBA champion this time." Zach Randolph said, "It was a particularly bad game for me and my team. Before this game, I was known as the NCAA's #1 interior lineman, and that's something I've always been proud of. But now, I don't think I deserve that title, and the NCAA's #1 interior lineman should be him. Saying that, Randolph turned his head to look at Jiang Pan, who was still celebrating with his teammates on the field. Tonight, the crown of Zach Randolph, the NCAA's strongest interior lineman, is completely removed. Jason Richardson also fully agreed with Randolph's words, echoing, "In my opinion, Jiang is not only the strongest interior lineman in the NCAA, but when he enters the NBA, he even has the qualifications to challenge Shaquille O'Neal. I don't know which of the two of them will be stronger offense at the basket, but I can guarantee that Jiang is definitely the stronger one than Shaquille in terms of defensive ability." Subsequently, Arizona's head coach Humphries was also interviewed. At this moment, Humphries' eyes were filled with tears of excitement. "Before March Madness began, I never dreamed that we would advance to the final. It's all crazy, it's like making a movie. I'm proud to have Jiang, he's the leader of the team, and we were able to reach the final because of him." While Humphries was speaking excitedly, Jiang Pan walked over leisurely. The reporter immediately interviewed Jiang Pan. "Jiang, congratulations on reaching the finals. At this time the University of Arizona team is advancing to the NCAA finals for the first time. Can you tell us how excited you are at the moment?" The reporter handed the microphone to Jiang Pan. "It's just to make it to the final, don't get so excited." Jiang Pan smiled and said, "Isn't this as simple as drinking water?" Episode 48. "Changsi, we should go too." In the audience, Wolf King Garnett patted Billups. "Go? Where to go?" Billups hasn't reacted yet. "To get that guy, we've got to speed up a bit. Now that a lot of teams are already preparing and we can't afford to be left behind." Garnett and Billups left the arena and went straight to the general manager's office. When he was still playing, Billups took KG's mobile phone and sent a text message to the general manager. However, KG was still a little uneasy, and he decided to take a trip himself. After all, he is the absolute core of the Timberwolves, and if he asks for Jiang Pan, the team management will absolutely be cautious. What's more, Jiang Pan itself is worthy of all the teams to compete for him. The interview with the reporters on the sidelines, TNT, is not over. Today there was a not small episode in the game. In the eyes of these journalists, this is the big news that attracts people's attention. So the reporter walked directly to the audience and walked in the direction of Jessica Alba. "Jessica, something funny happened in the second half today, and that was when Jiang knocked you down when he saved the ball. And I noticed that you had another very intimate encounter with him. How did you feel at that time?" The close contact mentioned by the reporter refers to Jiang Pan's accidental kiss of Jessica Alba's ex. He just can't say it bluntly. Faced with the reporter's question, Jessica Alba blushed and responded, "That's right, Jiang pounced on me, and Jiang gave me the feeling at that time that he was indeed very big." Hearing this answer, the reporter was immediately stunned, but quickly reacted. A meaningful smile appeared on his face, and he then asked, "Where is it big?" As soon as this remark came out, Jessica Alba also realized that the answer she had just given seemed to be somewhat inappropriate. A blush appeared on her face again, and she hurriedly defended herself. "I mean, Jiang is very big." This answer obviously did not satisfy the reporter, and he asked, "Then how did you feel physically the moment you were thrown down by this big man?" The reporter's questions became more and more daring, making Jessica Alba's face blush a little. She knew that it was impossible to fool the past today, so she gritted her teeth. "The feeling that gives me is that he bit me. It hurts me a little." Realizing that she had said the wrong thing, Jessica Alba quickly changed her words. As everyone knows, he was completely played by reporters. After hearing this answer, the reporter laughed a few times. "I don't think you have figured out what I mean. I just want to ask, what do you think of Jiang's performance?" Hearing this, Jessica Alba was stunned at first, and then her face suddenly became red, and even the roots of her ears were hot. She recalled the reporter's questions just now, which were obviously, "All right." Only at this moment did she react. She glared at the reporter slightly. This guy's routine is simply too deep. At this moment, Jiang Pan also walked towards her. This made Jessica Alba even more nervous, even breathing a little shorter. "I'm really sorry, I really didn't hurt you, did I?" With an apologetic look, Jiang Pan apologized to Jessica Alba again. "Didn't. It's okay, I'm in good health and can withstand it." Jiang Pan took the initiative to find her, which made Jessica Alba panic for a while. She had never been so nervous. "Jiang, if it's convenient, can you leave a contact information? The two of us are also related." When he said this, Alba had his hands behind his back, but he was clenching his fists tightly, and sweat came out of his palms. This is actually the purpose of Jiang Pan coming over. He really didn't know how to speak, but he didn't expect Jessica Alba to take the initiative to mention it. "Okay. No problem. If you want to watch the game in the future, just find me directly, I will arrange the tickets or something, and I apologize to you." Jiang Pan said with a smile. Seeing Jiang Pan agree, Jessica Alba hurriedly took out the paper and pen from her bag. It seems that she had planned it for a long time. Her hand holding the pen trembled a little, and she took a few deep breaths, which calmed her inner emotions a little, and then wrote her contact information on the paper and handed it to Jiang Pan. Jiang Pan also told the other party his number. And just when Jiang Pan reported his number, Scarlett John's son, who was standing on the side, had secretly remembered Jiang Pan's contact information in her heart. She thought to herself that she was already a step behind. Definitely can't lose to Jessica Alba again. Moments later, the University of Arizona players, who had tickets to the finals, celebrated all the way back to their locker rooms backstage. In the dressing room, some people were crying wolves and singing out-of-tune songs, and some people danced wildly, and the charming dancing and singing were really fatal. Everything is good in the basketball world in the United States, but the way they celebrate is really unacceptable. It's just crazy. Arenas suddenly turned his head to look at Jiang Pan. Jiang. You're a blessing today. I've heard of her. Jessica Alba actually gave you a head start. That's not right. To be precise, it should be the first to board. How? Kiss Goddess X, doesn't it feel very cool? Arenas deliberately made a loud noise, and at this time all his teammates set their eyes on Jiang Pan's body. All of them had a look of anticipation on their faces, waiting for Jiang Pan's answer. Jiang Pan knew that this calamity was destined to be dodged, and he looked around at his teammates. It seemed that these guys were not only curious, but also envious of what happened to them. These gossipy men. Since you have asked sincerely, then I will tell you mercifully. Jiang Pan smiled and said, I can only say that it is very soft. Very fragrant. It's a pity. It's just that the process is a bit fast, and there is no sense of experience. Everyone listened, and suddenly swallowed wildly. This guy's goddess is not satisfied with the cheapness, and he has no sense of experience. Do you know how to write insatiable? You guy, you really got cheap and sold well. We don't have such a good opportunity. But it seems that she doesn't seem to be disgusted with you. You want to go further. Maybe there will be a chance in the future. Arenas' words were originally joking, but who knew that? Jiang Pan nodded and replied, that's right. After all, we have left contact information for each other, and we can contact us at any time. At this moment, all the teammates were shocked, and they looked at Jiang Pan one by one. After eating the goddess's tofu, the goddess not only did not get angry, but left her contact information. This kind of bloody plot is generally only seen in idol bubble dramas. Really fake? Arenas couldn't believe it. Jiang Pan had only played a few games, and there was a private contact information of the female star? He played in the NCAA league for more than 2 years, none of them. This is not scientific. Episode 49. In order to prove that he was not bragging, Jiang Pan pulled out the small note and shook it in front of Arenas and the others. Black and white, this is the evidence. Let me see. Arenas said maliciously. Jiang Pan immediately gave him a blank look. Don't dream, this is a secret. Jiang Pan and his teammates had a fight, but their mobile phones suddenly rang. Jiang Pan opened it and saw that this number was very unfamiliar, or international. He suddenly remembered something. Although he crossed over from 2021, the original owner of this body was both parents. Now that he has made a name for himself in the NCAA, it is estimated that his parents over there also know about it. Jiang Pan hesitated slightly, but still connected the phone. Son. You. Did you get into any NCAA? On the other end of the phone, came a voice that was both strange and somewhat familiar. This sense of familiarity comes from the subconscious of this body. It's the voice of parents. Jiang Pan was a little nervous. He took a deep breath and forced himself to answer calmly, yes, haha. My son is really present, really give us a long face. A burst of laughter came from the heart. Jiang Pan's inner emotions were a little complicated. He didn't know how to explain his identity, then fortunately he didn't explain it. Jiang Pan's current parents do not know much about basketball, but now the major sports media of the Celestial Empire are reporting news about him every day. They then knew that their son was now so famous in the United States. Son, you seem to be famous now, but will this basketball be successful in the future? Can I make money? If it doesn't work, go back to China and find a class when you graduate. Jiang Pan's family is still good, and it is really not easy to study abroad in this era. His parents sent him abroad so that he could find a good job and live a decent life in the future. And now Jiang Pan has played basketball in the United States, and although he has played some fame, his parents still feel that this matter is a little unreliable. After all, in the current Celestial Empire, basketball development is not very good, and the older generation does not know much about it, and most of them will think that this is playing. It's not nice to say, it's a little unprofessional. Jiang Pan smiled slightly. Don't worry about this, if you play basketball well, you can make a lot of money. How much do you make then? Almost 20 million US dollars. More than 20 million US dollars, Jiang Pan is not exaggerated. In the 2001 NBA, the highest salary of players has exceeded 20 million US dollars, plus some endorsement fees, etc. The current NBA players more than 20 million are not few. Hearing this answer, Father Jiang was relieved. 20 million US dollars is okay, then you can fight well, don't disgrace our family. He grinned. What? Oh, what? $20 million is okay? Jiang Pan was suddenly speechless. 20 million US dollars, that is more than 100 million, in his opinion, this is already an astronomical amount. $20 million is okay. Jiang Pan's father's words suddenly reminded him of what a host said, Peking University is okay. Now Jiang Pan just wants to ask, does his father have a relative surnamed Sa, studying at Peking University? The next day, another match in the March Madness Final Four match also came to an end. Not surprisingly, Duke University defeated Sehorton University by an overwhelming margin to advance to the finals. Duke University Blue Devils versus University Arizona Wildcats battle off at the forbidden top. This result is exactly the same as most fans guessed. Duke versus Arizona, it's definitely going to be a strong conversation. Sure enough, in the end, it was Duke University and the University of Arizona showdown. The strongest team in the NCAA, the strongest dark horse in March Madness, who is really the strongest? Do you need to say that? Duke is the strongest, of course. The Duke lineup is so perfect that there are hardly any weaknesses. In contrast, the University of Arizona squad only has 2 strong points, and it depends on the performance of Gilbert Arenas. If he plays like this game in the Final Four, then there is only 1 strong point on the field. Yes, although Jiang is very strong, it is difficult to resist the super lineup of Duke University. Even if he can still burst the inside line, he can't prevent 5 people at the same time, right? Come on Arizona. Duke Blue Devil must win. For a while, many fans were talking about the finals of the NCAA. They carefully analyzed the lineups of the 2 teams and came to a relatively uniform conclusion. Not to mention that Duke is the better team. Duke University is at least more comprehensive and complete than the University of Arizona. But because of the existence of Jiang Pan alone has the strength to become the hammer that crushes Mayu. So these fans think the game may be exciting. The next game is the real challenge for us. Duke, they're stronger than any team we've beaten before. Jiang, to be honest, I don't have much confidence. In the dormitory, Arenas rarely did not watch the film, and he is now worried about the final. Originally, he did not have this baggage, but now it is different. The team came to the finals under Jiang Pan's leadership, and if they lost the last game, all the opponents they had won before would be meaningless. It's time to eat, it's time to drink, don't put things on hold. Jiang Pan said, it's just the NCAA finals, those guys are also people, and they are not monsters, what is there to be afraid of? It's just that they're a little more famous, but what's the use? That Zach Black Bear in yesterday's game, isn't he known as the NCAA's #1 interior lineman? That's the result? Jiang Pan was lying on the bed with Erlang's legs up, looking completely indifferent. Arenas looked at his hanging look, and was speechless for a while, and this guy's heart was too big. That's different, you really can't underestimate them. I think you should also keep a low profile, in case the boat capsizes in the gutter, it will be a shame. Arenas reminded again. Jiang Pan was too lazy to deal with him, and this Arenas seemed to be very different from the personality he remembered. In his memory, how confident the NBA's big general was, why did he look a little intimidated now? Now Gilbert Arenas is really very young. Arenas, Jiang. Arenas wanted to say something more, but was directly interrupted by Jiang Pan. I don't want to talk about basketball now. If you are really nervous, take your little movie out and watch it, learn more movements now, and after winning the championship, it may not be long before you can use it. Huh. Arenas turned his head sideways, if you want to say this, then I won't be sleepy. When the two said this, 2 figures couldn't help but appear in Jiang Pan's mind. It's Jessica Alba and Scarlett John News. After winning the championship, Jiang Pan will of course get together with them. Meanwhile, the new round of draft predictions has been freshly baked. Episode 50, Jiang. You're in the top 3. Before watching the small movie, Arenas habitually opened draft predictions. He saw Jiang Pan's name for the second time and shouted excitedly. Huh? Top 3? Jiang Pan was also a little surprised, but he didn't expect to schedule another draft prediction before the finals arrived. Jiang Pan sat up from the bed, turned his head and glanced at it, only to see his name appear in the second place. In other words, he not only entered the top 3, but also ranked second. Jiang Pan raised a hint of interest, and he began to browse carefully. At the top of the draft's prediction list is Jay Williams from Duke University. The second is himself. The third was a high school student named Kwame Buelang. Jay Williams, Duke University's core backcourt for the Blue Devils, who will make it to the NBA in 2002 and still be a top performer. Although he has been quite good throughout his career, his draft prospects and physical talent are definitely good. As for this third Kwame Buelang, Jiang Pan still has some impressions. If he follows the right historical trajectory, he will land in the NBA as a champion at the end of this season. Kwame Buelang's physical talent is very good, in the United States high school students, is definitely a super existence, but it is such a player, after entering the NBA but not able to realize his talent, so he was later installed as a parallel goods champion. Of course, all this is based on the right historical trajectory. Now with the birth of Jiang Pan, all this is destined to be different. Jiang Pan's gaze kept sweeping, and to his surprise, his teammates Gilbert Arenas and Richard Jefferson had already squeezed into the first round, and both were on the edge of the lottery zone. According to the list, Gilbert Arenas is now the 13th pick in the first round, while Richard Jefferson is a close second pick with the 14th pick. NBA lottery zone, 115 picks. Arenas was also surprised when he saw his ranking. Although he performed well during this period, under normal circumstances, he would not have improved so quickly. All this is the credit of Jiang Pan. Playing next to Jiang Pan, they won all the way, plus both of them played good statistics, which is why they rose so fast. Without Jiang Pan, they would all be just second-round picks. Since Jiang Pan announced that day that he would add this year's draft, this matter has spread like a spider's web. The management of NBA teams has almost always made clear their off-season mission, which is to win the river. In their opinion, Jiang Pan is definitely a perfect cornerstone for team building. His performance at the level of dominance at both ends of the offensive and defensive ends of the court is simply mouth-watering, and even his popularity has now surpassed that of Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan also influenced the entire United States back then, and the current Jiang Pan is not only popular in the United States, his influence in the Celestial Empire now does not have to be worse than the United States. As we all know, the Celestial Empire has a large population and a huge number of fans, but for a long time, the Celestial Empire has not been able to appear a representative player in the NBA. Now the emergence of Jiang Pan can open the basketball market of the Celestial Empire very well, which is a huge cake. Even if Jiang Pan entered the NBA, he was not able to play as dominant as he is now. He could also use his influence to open up the market of the Celestial Empire. So the team that owns Jiang Pan must be able to make a lot of money. The NBA has always been a commercial league, every team is to make money. In their opinion, Jiang Pan is the key to opening the Celestial Empire market. It's great that he can play in the NBA. Just can't, with his team, you can also make a big profit. Mr. General Manager, we must not miss this opportunity. Take the river, this is the key to the rise of the team. The Timberwolves executives held a meeting. Wolf King Garnett, as the core of the team, was also involved, because the content of the meeting was how to get Jiang Pan. Garnett's expression was extremely firm, and he constantly emphasized Jiang Pan's strength. Kevin, don't hide from you, next season, our core will be you and Chauncey Billups. Now on this basis, there is a new target for recruitment, that is, Jiang. Please believe that we are already planning all this, and next season, you two will fight side by side with Jiang. The general manager of the Timberwolves made a solemn promise as he received a text message from Billups on Garnett's cell phone. The content of the text message is concise and clear, and if you don't get Jiang Pan, then Garnett will leave, although it is later learned that it is a joke by Billups. But considering that KG has repeatedly suffered setbacks with the Timberwolves, the joke has a 3-point truth after all. But in fact, the Timberwolves want to compete for Jiang Pan, which is quite difficult. They also made the playoffs this season, so the lottery zone is completely out of reach for them. The only hope of getting Jiang Pan is through trading, but this chance is really too slim. Who would be stupid enough to give such a huge piece of cake to someone else? If you want to get the Jiang Pan, you have to trade. And the object of the trade equalization must be let the Timberwolves face the blood. It's not just the Minnesota Timberwolves. Other teams in the league are similarly troubled by the matter. Whether we win the championship this season or not, we have to get him in the break. The 76ers management is also in a meeting. The general manager has made up his mind that he will gamble, no matter what the cost. This year's playoffs are still underway, although the 76ers are now doing well and are even on track to reach the finals. But the general manager of the team believes that if they meet the Lakers in the finals, they will most likely lose the championship. Because with Allen Iverson alone, it is really difficult to fight against the sky-high OK combination. But if they can introduce Jiang Pan this summer and form the duo of Iverson plus Jiang Pan, they are confident that they will surpass the OK combination and become the new ruler of the alliance. Teams like the Magic, Raptors, and Jazz that have entered the playoffs have already joined the battlefield early. Not to mention the teams that did not make the playoffs and chose to swing badly, their resistance to Jiang Pan is almost zero. If Jiang Pan is not our teammate, it is our strongest opponent. The first person to say this was Black Mamba Kobe Bryant. But unconsciously, this sentence has been circulated in NBA circles, which shows how terrifying Jiang Pan's strength is. He is not yet in the NBA, and these players already see him as the strongest competitor in the future. That sounds like an exaggeration, but it's actually true. No matter who it is, even if it is a first-time basketball person, when he sees Jiang Pan's performance on the court, he will be deeply shocked. All fans around the world are also looking forward to the day when Jiang Pan will be in the NBA.